Hi, my name is Iris Jeston. This is the presentation for the paper Effects of Wording and Gendered Voices on the Acceptability of Voice Assistants in Future Autonomous Vehicles. This work, done during my internship at the University of Nottingham School of Computer Science, was an extension to my master's dissertation and co-authored by my supervisor, Joel E. Fisher, and Maria J. Galvez-Trigo, David R. Lodge, and Gary E. Burnett. There is a rise in the commercial popularity of self-driving or autonomous vehicles. People are now able to actively engage in other activities while the vehicle remains in control. In autonomous vehicles, the voice assistant plays a major role in acting as the mediator between the vehicle and the driver, informing the driver of various decisions taken on behalf of the vehicle, and is thus an integral part of building the driver's trust in the vehicle. Owing to the importance a voice assistant plays in an autonomous vehicle, it is vital to ensure that the commands given by it are such that it engages the attention of the driver at the right time with the right degree of importance, especially in the case of a shift of control between the driver and the vehicle. This study thus aimed to investigate how the driver's acceptability of a voice assistant in an autonomous vehicle was affected by its different gendered voices and the wording of the prompts given by it. Existing research states that the gender of a voice assistant's voice has an influence on how anthropomorphic it is perceived to be. Current voice assistants use a female-sounding voice, as research states that humans tend to perceive a female voice to be more agreeable and pleasant. However, this may lead to a contribution to the usage of gendered language and can embed gender stereotypes, especially when interacting with a female voice. With recent developments in the so-called genderless voices, we were interested to study the effects of different gendered voices, including that of a genderless voice, on their acceptability. We were hopeful, in the spirit of gender equality, that we would not find a significant effect of gender. Research also states that the wording of prompts given by a voice assistant affects the perceived urgency in collision avoidance systems and allows for drivers to form collision avoidance plans. Whether a prompt style is informative or social affects the perceived ease of use and the usability of the autonomous vehicle. In our study, we were thus interested in investigating the effects of wording in different driving scenarios on acceptability in conjunction with gendered voices, which to our knowledge has not been studied in this combination before. This led us to formulate the following overarching research question, broken down into the following two parts. The first part being, how is the acceptability of a voice assistant in autonomous vehicles affected by its different gendered voices? And how is the acceptability of a voice assistant in autonomous vehicles affected by the wording of the prompts it produces? The study was conducted on 18 participants, out of which 9 were male, 9 female, between the age groups of 19 to 55 years. The participants were recruited from UAE, UK, and India, and hence had a range of mixed backgrounds. The study was a 3x3 factorial, that is, gendered voice by wording of the prompts within subjects to sign, which explored 6 examples of handover and handback driving scenarios by 9 variations of voices of the voice assistant. The study was counterbalanced such that every participant got to experience every driving scenario once and every voice variation at least once. Owing to COVID, the desktop study was conducted via Microsoft Teams or Zoom. A YouTube video pertaining to the driving scenario under consideration was played for the participant to see via a shared laptop screen. Along with this, a detailed description of what would happen in that specific driving scenario was read out to them. Following this, an audio clip of the voice assistant's prompt in that specific driving scenario was played for them to hear. I'll now be playing a sample of the voice assistant's prompt in the driving scenario showed on screen.
Hey, the bridge is approaching, and I think I can take over if you'd like.
After this, the participant was asked to fill in the related questions in the during study questionnaire. The above was repeated for each of the 9 different driving scenarios. At the end, there was a post-study questionnaire and a short recorded interview. These are the 9 voice variations for the different driving scenarios. There was the female Joanna voice, which I just now played, in a commanding, formal and informally worded prompt. Then there was the male Matthew voice, which I'll now play, in a commanding, formal and informally worded prompt.
Hey, bridge is approaching, and I think I can take over if you'd like.
And then there was the gender ambiguous Jordan voice, which I'll play now, in the commanding, formal and informally worded prompt.
Hey, bridge is approaching, and I think I can take over if you'd like.
This is a table showing various examples of sample voice assistant prompts in a formal, commanding, and informal wording in different driving scenarios. According to literature, a vehicle handover is the transfer of control from the vehicle over to the driver when the vehicle automation seems unsure about being able to handle the upcoming driving situation. Whereas a vehicle handback is the transfer of control from the driver back to the vehicle. I'll go over one of the examples shown on the table. The fog handover driving scenario was the case of a shift of control from the vehicle over to the driver when the vehicle automation senses a difficulty in vision due to fog. The voice assistant's formal prompt in this scenario said, "The visibility is low due to the fog. Please take over the car now." Before we move into the results and findings, it is important to stress that our results are just about these voices, that is, the male-sounding Matthew voice, the female-sounding Joanna voice, and the gender-ambiguous Jordan voice, and do not suggest a generalization across all gender-sounding voices. Our results showed that gendered voices had a significant main effect on 2 out of the 16 measures of acceptability, which were artificial and undesirable. Our results demonstrated, as can be seen from the figure, that the male Matthew voice was significantly more desirable and less artificial than the gender-ambiguous Jordan voice. This was supported by different comments given by participants in interviews, where some participants went on to say that they did not come to recognize a gender-ambiguous voice. Some others referred to the gender-ambiguous Jordan voice as, quoting, "the freaky or the artificial female voice." This is not surprising, as the Jordan voice was created by manipulating the SSML tags, that is, the speech synthesis manipulation language tags, for pitch, rate, and volume of the female Joanna voice. This also echoes existing research which states that humans have a tendency to pull a voice that is specifically designed to sound gender ambiguous into a binary or a male or female category based on their previous experiences with gender-sounding voices. Our research confirms that not any voice can be manipulated in order to sound gender ambiguous, and that there is a growing need for better control over auditory qualities of conversational interface designing to be made available to those designing them. We do think of it as an encouraging sign for gender equality, as we had hoped, that even though the male Matthew voice was rated to be more desirable and less artificial than the female Joanna voice, the differences were not significant. Our results thus do not align with existing research which states that there is a higher perceived ease of use for voices of voice assistants when they abide by traditional gender stereotypes of the informative male and the friendly female. It is important to connect our work to sociophonetics. Our findings reinforce the idea that qualities associated with human-sounding voices, including that of a human-sounding voice of a voice assistant, are greatly influenced by various factors such as geography, gender, age, sex, sexuality, social class, accent, pitch, dialect, and so on. Thus, in manipulating a voice to sound gender ambiguous, we may have inadvertently changed other subtle characteristics of the voice that influence how people perceive its acceptability. Due to the complex sociophonetic nature of gender-sounding voices, our findings aligning with existing research states the need to move away from the one-voice-fits-all approach towards voice-assistant voices. In order to check that the different levels of the wording of prompts, that is, commanding, formal, and informal, were in fact perceived as intended, a manipulation check was carried out. The results showed that the commanding and formally worded prompts were not significantly perceived as different from each other. Hence, the two levels, commanding and formal, were collapsed to form a joint level, commanding/formal, for the analysis. Our results showed that the wording of prompts had a significant main effect on 10 out of the 16 measures of acceptability. The commanding/formally worded prompts were rated to be significantly higher in many of the desirable measures of acceptability, including that of being acceptable, effective, understandable, useful, appropriate, assertive, and raising alertness, whereas the informally worded prompt was rated higher on being entertaining and friendly. The higher rating of the commanding/formally worded prompt for the measure raising alertness aligns with existing research, which suggests a more assertive voice leads to faster reaction times and a higher sense of urgency. Some participants in interviews were of the opinion the wording of the prompts seemed to be changing, but the tone remains the same. This aligns with existing research, which stresses the importance of paralinguistic cues and its strong connection to the wording of voice-assistant prompts. Our findings hence showed that gendered voices had a significant main effect on 2 out of 16 measures of acceptability, and that the results should be interpreted in the context of just these voices we compared and not as a general gender preference. Due to the complex sociophonetic nature of gendered voices, our results do not conclusively point at what voice in a future autonomous vehicle should sound like, although it does encourage a move away from the one-voice-fits-all approach towards voice-assistant voices. Our results also show that the wording of the prompts of voice assistants have a significant main effect on 10 out of the 16 measures of acceptability. Due to the safety-critical nature of driving, there is a preference for a commanding/formally worded prompt than an informally worded prompt. Overall, our findings demonstrate the complex nature of characteristics to be considered for the design of voice assistants in future autonomous vehicles, and how careful thought must be given to designing the wording and the voice of voice assistants given the impact it has on its perception and its acceptability. Thank you.